Hello, hello! Welcome to today's live English lesson here on the Speak English with Vanessa YouTube channel. Today I have something special for you. We're going to be learning English through a story. And you're especially going to be practicing quick speaking. So you're going to be thinking about sentences, answering questions, and this is something that we haven't done here on the YouTube channel before. So I want to introduce this concept to you and help you to speak today. So if you are watching live, if you're participating live, I recommend doing that, participating, answering questions, saying them out loud. If you're watching the replay, no problem. You can benefit a lot. You can do the same things, repeat out loud. You can pause the video. If you need more time, you can repeat and think about the answer to questions a little bit longer. It's great. It'll be here on YouTube for you to enjoy. Thanks so much for joining me from Colombia. Javier, welcome. Yassine in Algeria. Thank you so much for coming. Austria, wonderful. Ilyas in Austria. Putu in Indonesia. Thanks for coming. Today, if you are new, I want to introduce myself really quick. I'm Vanessa, hi, and I teach English here on the Speak English with Vanessa YouTube channel and on my website, speakenglishwithvanessa.com. Pretty clear, right? And today's concept, the story concept, is something that members of the Fearless Fluency Club. The Fearless Fluency Club is my monthly course for learning English. Members of this course already know this concept because each month I provide a new story and a new idea so that they can practice in this way. So I want to introduce this concept to you. I'm going to be sharing my screen a lot so that you can read with me, look at the questions, and try to be as interactive as possible. First of all, let's take a look at my screen so that I can show you exactly what this story concept is, and then we'll get started with it. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. All right, let's take a look at my screen. You can see here we've got a couple different folders here. This is Google Drive. If you're familiar with Google Drive, then you probably know what this is. Here we have the story. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. And this is the typical material that's available for Fearless Fluency Club members. They have a story folder, which is available here. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Video lessons, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, MP3 versions of all of those, transcripts for all of the lessons, a lesson guide, and just a general how to use this course guide. So let's go back to the story because we're gonna take a look at this today in more detail. Typically in the course, I provide 4 audio files because there's 4 different versions of the story. And there's a PDF version. And you're going to see this also today because we're going to take a look at this story. I changed the story just a little bit to fit our YouTube friends here instead of just course members because course members are going to be more familiar with the general story, the full idea. So I wanted it to fit you as well to help you as much as possible. And typically in the story, there are different elements like vocabulary. So all the monthly vocabulary words I included in this story. And these are words that members have already learned in the vocabulary lesson and grammar points, which are also included in this. So you're going to see a lot of different colors, extra vocabulary that I explain at the end down here. So this is a little bit more intensive than what we're going to do on YouTube. But I still want to share this concept with you because it's really valuable. The next part are questions about the story. So this is what we're going to focus on today. I made a new file so that it's a little more bright and colorful and easy to understand through YouTube. And I'll explain this concept in just a moment. And this is available in the course. This is not what we're going to do on YouTube, but there are 3 versions of the story. There's the regular version. This is the story 2. So this is going to be another verb tense using I in the present. And then the third story is in the future using we instead of I or you. So these are just options that we're not going to talk about today on YouTube, but they're available in the course. So this is a concept that you can get in more detail. But let's look at what we're going to do today in the course, or in our wonderful live YouTube lesson, because I have a special picture and story to share with you. Does anyone know where this picture was taken? This is a pretty typical city in the US. I went there a couple weeks ago. If you look closely at the taxis, you might see where it is. Yes, a lot of people are saying New York City. Correct. Yes, this is in New York City. And I want to know, have you ever taken a taxi? Have you ever taken a taxi in New York? If you've taken a taxi in New York, or even in the US in general, it can be pretty crazy and hectic. There's a lot of taxi drivers. Every country has their own style for getting a taxi and trying to get a fair payment for the taxi. Trying to use a taxi is different in every country. So this story today we're going to talk about is getting a taxi in New York. And in the story, I changed some of the things from the course. So if you know this from the course, in our story, we're going to be talking about Sam. Sam is going to take a taxi in New York, and we're going to read and answer out loud about his experiences. So let's go down. Imagine this picture. We're going to take a look at the story now. So I've broken this story into different sections. This is the first section. I'm going to read it out loud. You might remember we already talked about these colored parts. These colored parts are not relevant to us on YouTube because we haven't studied in depth these vocabulary words or this pronunciation point or this grammar point. But in the full course, members have already studied that. So this is reinforcing those concepts. So you can imagine that that's what the colors are for, but we're not going to focus on that today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read this story, and then we're going to answer some questions about the story. So listen carefully. Try to imagine what's happening. If there are some new words for you, don't worry. Imagine the concept, imagine the context, so that you can try your best to fully understand what's happening. Are you ready? If you want to read with me, go ahead. I'm going to read it, and you can read at the same time. You can listen, and then we'll answer some questions. All right, let's get started. It was Sam's first day in the US, and his plane had just landed in the New York airport. When he stepped outside, he instantly got mobbed by dozens of taxi drivers shouting at him, "Taxi, taxi, taxi, here, sir, taxi!" American taxi drivers certainly didn't use subtle marketing techniques. He had taken a taxi probably hundreds of times in London, but at that time, he had felt more comfortable because it was his hometown. How could he choose a taxi driver that wouldn't rip him off? Thankfully, a kind-looking taxi driver came over to him and said, "Sir, don't listen to those crazy drivers. I'll take you peacefully where you want to go." Sam felt relieved that someone else was aware of the hectic situation outside the airport. Sam told the driver the name of his hostel, which was supposed to be just 15 minutes away from the airport. After about 10 minutes, Sam looked around and began to feel a little concerned. He had no idea why he felt uneasy. But then he realized that the taxi had been going back and forth on the same streets. Oh no! He didn't want the driver to drop him off in the middle of nowhere, but he didn't want to pay for a scenic tour around New York. He spoke up. "Excuse me, I could be completely wrong, but based on Google Maps, I believe we're going in the wrong direction." The driver looked worried for a moment, but then he said, without missing a beat, "Oh, no problem, Sam. We'll get there in just a moment." Instantly, the taxi turned around and zoomed straight ahead towards the highway. Sam let out a sigh of relief and thought, I guess taxi drivers don't have an incentive to be completely honest with tourists. It's just one of those things that could happen in any country. All right, that's the end of our story for right now. So, how did you do listening to this story? Could you understand the general ideas, the general concepts? Sam has a problem on the taxi. The taxi driver tries to get some extra money from him. So now that we've listened to the full story, we're going to go back and answer some questions. I'm going to show you what's actually happening. First of all, I'm going to read a sentence from the story, and then I'll ask a question. And the question is exactly the same as the sentence. So you need to pretty much repeat what you heard in that sentence. This is called a mirroring technique. So you're taking my sentence and reforming it to create an answer. If you want to use the same vocabulary, go ahead. If you want to use the same verb tense, go ahead. If you want to change it and use maybe a word that's similar, no problem. I'm going to show you the question, and after a couple seconds, I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to think about an answer for each question, and then I'll show you a possible answer. There are a lot of answers. If you want to write an answer in the chat box, if you want to write an answer in the comments, no problem. But I also recommend saying it out loud. This is a good chance to speak quickly, think quickly, and answer these questions. Some of the questions will be much easier than other questions because it's a short answer and you just heard the sentence before that. The idea here is not to be so complex. The idea is to reform your own sentences with the material that I've already given you. So this is a good step to help you speak confidently and understandably. Let's go back to my screen and go to the first question about this story. Okay, so here we have the end of the story. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story one sentence at a time. And then you're going to see the first question. All right, so our first question, let's take a look at the story. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to ask you this question. Are you ready? I'm going to start reading the story, and then I'll ask you the question. It was Sam's first day in the US, and his plane had just landed in the New York airport. Question number 1. Where did Sam's plane land? I recommend saying a full sentence because you want to challenge your English skills to say as much as possible. So you could just say the place, but I recommend using a subject, a verb, a full sentence. All right, let's take a look at it. It landed in the New York airport. Great. Or he landed in the New York airport. Sam landed in New York. Excellent. So here, this question is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, because I just read the sentence, and that's the concept. You're repeating it, and trying to create your own sentence. Okay, let's go to the next part. I want you to listen and then try to think of what you can say for this question. I'm going to read the story. When he stepped outside, he instantly got mobbed by dozens of taxi drivers shouting at him, "Taxi, taxi, taxi here, sir, taxi." Question number 2. What happened to Sam when he stepped outside the airport? Now, this is listening practice. You're not reading the story with me. You only see the question. What happened to Sam when he stepped outside the airport? I'll give you just a moment to think about an answer. We're using an important vocabulary expression, and you're repeating it so that you can remember it. This is the first step to remembering new expressions, is repetition. Oh, we've got our lovely answer. He got mobbed by dozens of taxi drivers who were shouting at him. Here, a lot of you in the chat box are using this great expression, got mobbed by. Maybe this is the first time that you've ever heard this expression, but even if it is, even if you're not exactly sure what it means, you're repeating it from my story and you're repeating it in a full sentence. That's wonderful. This expression, we can imagine a mob. A mob is a crowd of people, a huge crowd of people, and they're running at you, and you feel kind of overwhelmed because there's so many people. So here, to get mobbed by someone means that a lot of people are running at him. The taxi drivers are running and shouting, and Sam feels a little bit overwhelmed. All right, let's go to the third question. I'm going to continue reading. American taxi drivers certainly didn't use subtle marketing techniques. He had taken a taxi probably hundreds of times in London, but at that time, he had felt more comfortable because it was his hometown. Question number 3. Why did Sam feel more comfortable in London? Why did Sam feel more comfortable in London? Try to create a full sentence here, starting with he or starting with a subject here. Why did he feel more comfortable? Great listening skills. I'll give you just a moment. I'm going to take a sip of water. All right, I see a lot of great questions and answers coming into the chat box. We could say he felt more comfortable because London was his hometown. You could say just this final part. London was his hometown. Great, but I want to give you a possibility of answering in a more complex way. So there's a couple correct answers here. Don't worry if your answer is not exactly like mine, but this is good listening practice. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, let's not look at the answer. All right, the next part I'm going to read. How could he choose a taxi driver that wouldn't rip him off? Thankfully, a kind-looking taxi driver came over to him and said, "Sir, don't listen to those crazy drivers. I'll take you peacefully where you want to go." Question number 4. What did the kind-looking taxi driver say to Sam? Oh, what do you think? Did you hear what he said? What did the kind-looking taxi driver say? We could say a short sentence here. You could say a longer sentence. It's up to you. I'll give you just a moment to think about what the taxi driver said. Okay, let's take a look at our answer here. The taxi driver, he said not to worry about the other drivers, and he would take Sam where he wanted to go. You can say this in a couple different ways. You could just say, he said, and then you could use the same words I said. He said, don't listen to those crazy drivers. I'll take you peacefully where you want to go. You can directly repeat that, or you can use this kind of mirroring speech, he said, and using a slightly different sentence structure. You've got a couple different options, and a lot of them are correct. This is practicing listening skills, repeating, changing sentences to fit different sentence structures. All right, let's look at the next one. I'm going to continue reading our story. Sam felt relieved that someone else was aware of the hectic situation outside the airport. Sam told the driver the name of his hostel, which was supposed to be just 15 minutes away from the airport. Question number 5. Where did Sam want to go and how far away was it? How far away was it? Where did he want to go and how far away was it? So we need 2 pieces of information here. You can make a sentence with these in any way you'd like. You can simply repeat the exact same sentence that I said, or you can create your own sentence and use a different grammatical structure. It's your choice. Okay, let's take a look at the answer. Where did Sam want to go? And how far away was it? Sam wanted to go to his hostel. That was only 15 minutes away. So we could say this in a couple different ways. You could say, Sam wanted to go to his hostel. And then we could make a new sentence here. It was only 15 minutes away. Great. We've got a lot of choices, but here I chose to combine these with the word that. And that's just going to give you another kind of sentence structure that you can integrate into your English learning. Okay, let's go to question number 6. I'm going to continue reading. After about 10 minutes, Sam looked around and began to feel a little concerned. He had no idea why he felt uneasy, but then he realized that the taxi had been going back and forth on the same streets. Question number 6. Why was Sam feeling uneasy? Why was he feeling uneasy? Even if you're not certain about this word uneasy, maybe you've never heard it before, maybe you've never used it, you can use the context of this section that I already read. I already used the word, he began to feel a little concerned. So here you can listen for similar words and try to get a feeling for the context here. Why does he feel uneasy? What's going on here? Maybe this has happened to you in a taxi before. It's quite an uneasy situation. All right, let's take a look at our answer. He felt uneasy, or he felt uncomfortable, or he felt concerned because the taxi had been going back and forth the whole time. So here you're mimicking my sentence structure, had been. We're using here, had been going. Maybe this is a pretty complex verb structure for you, but because I used it already in the story, I said he realized that the taxi had been going back and forth. I already used that. So this is a good chance for you to imitate that, to mimic that, and to start to integrate it into your own conversations. That's what this whole story question concept is about, helping you to use complex ideas, maybe words that you're not familiar with, or verb tenses that are new for you, and to use them pretty easily because you're imitating and mimicking. Okay, let's go to the next section. Question number 7. I'm going to read again. Oh no, he didn't want the driver to drop him off in the middle of nowhere, but he didn't want to pay for a scenic tour around New York. Question number 7. What are the two things that Sam didn't want? So in the sentence I just read, there's two things that he doesn't want. You can put them in your sentence however you'd like. You can completely imitate mine or create your own. Try to create a full sentence. He didn't want, or you can start in another way. I don't want this. Pretend that you're Sam. You're in that situation. What's something that Sam didn't want? There's two things. All right, a lot of people are writing excellent answers. Take a moment to write it. Take a moment to say it out loud. Think to yourself if you're in a public place. Let's see, what are the two things that Sam didn't want? He didn't want, first of all, to be dropped off in the middle of nowhere. Maybe this is a new expression for you, dropped off. Okay, maybe that's new, but you can imagine from what I said what's happening. He doesn't want the driver to open the door and tell him to go and stay in this place in New York that he's unfamiliar with, dropped off in the middle of nowhere. And the second part, he didn't want to pay for a tour of New York in the taxi. Yes, so you can include the words that I used. You could create your own words, but you're imitating that sentence structure. Personally, I completely understand how Sam's feeling. I don't want to be left in the middle of nowhere. And I don't want to pay extra money just to go in a taxi. I want to go to my destination and maybe take another tour or do it a little more consciously. Okay, let's go to question number 8. I'm going to read the next part of the story. He spoke up. Excuse me, I could be completely wrong, but based on Google Maps, I believe we're going in the wrong direction. All right, number 8. How did Sam know that they were going in the wrong direction? How did he know that they were going in the wrong direction? What was his clue or his key? And it's something that is really helpful and handy to use when you're traveling. If you don't have access to Wi-Fi or internet service, maybe it's not so possible. But let me know. How did he know he was going in the wrong direction? All right, let's look at our answer. Based on Google Maps, they were probably going in the wrong direction. So the reason why I included based on here, and it's up to you. If you don't want to include this, it's okay. But in this month's Fearless Fluency Club lesson set, based on was one of the vocabulary words. So I wanted to integrate this into the story and into the questions to help members get a lot of repetition to feel more comfortable with it. So if you want to remember words, this is another great way, just repeating it in different styles, in questions, in stories, in answers based on Google Maps. They were probably going in the wrong direction, or according to Google Maps. Great answer. A lot of you are saying according to it, because of Google Maps, based on Google Maps. There's a lot of different ways we can say this. Okay, let's look at question number 9. We're almost finished. How are you doing so far? I hope that these questions and answers are useful for you. Let's go to the next part of the story. The driver looked worried for a moment, but then he said without missing a beat, "Oh, no problem, Sam. We'll get there in just a moment." Question number 9. How did the driver react to Sam's concern? Now here, it's possible that there's an expression I used that's new for you, an idiom that's new for you. If the expression in the story is new for you, try to guess what the context is, what he's really trying to say. How did the driver react to Sam's concern? I'm going to read that part of the story actually one more time. The driver looked worried for a moment, and then he said, without missing a beat, Oh, no problem, Sam. We'll get there in just a moment. All right. Let's take a look at our answer and see how we can answer this question. The driver instantly reassured him by saying, "We'll get there in just a moment." You could say, the driver looked worried, and then he said, "We'll get there in just a moment." But I used an important expression, without missing a beat. Without missing a beat. This is a great idiom. In fact, this was a new vocabulary word that I wanted to integrate into the story for course members so that they could learn some extra idioms and useful expressions. And you can guess what it means based on these words. Instantly reassured him. He didn't stop for a moment without missing a beat. So the expression we're talking about here, I'll write it out, is without missing a beat. Without missing a beat. So this means if you imagine a drummer, he's drumming and maybe something happens, a loud sound, but the drummer doesn't stop, he continues drumming. So he goes without missing a beat. And exactly that's what the driver did too. The driver realized, oh, he caught me. He knows that I'm trying to get more money from Sam. So he said it quickly. First, he looks worried, and then he says, "Oh, no problem. We'll get there in just a moment." So that's why I included this idiom, without missing a beat. And if you'd like, you can go back to the beginning of this lesson and review the story so that you can get a full picture of what's happening. All right, let's go to question number 10. I'm going to continue reading. Instantly, the taxi turned around and zoomed straight ahead towards the highway. Number 10. What did the taxi driver do next? The taxi driver knows that Sam understands now that he has been going in circles for a long time to get extra money. So, can you tell me in a full sentence, what does the taxi driver do? The purpose of these is to answer quickly, say it out loud, try to answer exactly what I said. I'll read it one more time. Instantly, the taxi turned around and zoomed straight ahead towards the highway. All right, let's take a look at our answer. He immediately turned around and headed straight for the highway. You could say, he turned around and zoomed straight ahead towards the highway. You can repeat exactly what I said, or you can change the sentence structure a little bit. Like my answer, no problem. This is giving you a more advanced possibility, but if you want to repeat exactly what I said, it's still repetition. It's still mirroring what I'm saying, and that's useful. Okay, oh, I don't want to show you the answer yet. Let's go to the final question. I'm going to read the end of the story. Sam let out a sigh of relief and thought, I guess taxi drivers don't have an incentive to be completely honest with tourists. It's just one of those things that could happen in any country. Question number 11. What is one of those things that could happen in any country? You can give a clear, short answer for this, or you can give a longer answer for this. What do you think could happen in any country? If you've ever experienced this, it's quite frustrating, but it's just one of those things. And that is part of the vocabulary that we talked about in the lesson set for this. One of those things, just one of those things is a vocabulary expression, so I'm helping to repeat that. Let's take a look at our answer. Taxi drivers aren't always honest with tourists. You could get ripped off by the taxi driver in any country. Now here we're using this expression that we learned earlier in the story. So for us here on YouTube, we've only repeated this once, but for members of the course, we've been repeating this expression all month in different variations, in vocabulary lessons, in the conversation lesson. So you've been hearing this a lot. Today, we've only heard it once or twice, but if you've been hearing it for quite a while, it'll be easier for it to be used in a sentence. So we can say exactly what I said, or we could say it in a different variation. Some of you said, taxi drivers could cheat in any country. You could meet a taxi driver like this in any country. Great, you're making your own sentences. Taxi drivers aren't always honest in every country. Great, you're taking the concept and making it your own, but using that basic outline that I've given so far. All right. All right, everyone, tell me, how did you do? What did you think of this focused story practice? Because here I've given you the story, and then we talked about the questions from the story. And because it's structured, this is a good first place to start to integrate complex vocabulary, complex verb sentence structures. This is a good place to start because you're not imagining it completely yourself. It's already there in the story, and you're just repeating it or maybe changing the sentence slightly, if you'd like, to fit what would be best for you. So I hope that this more structured practice is useful for you. I hope that it was interesting, and I hope now, when you take a taxi in any country, be aware. Because you never know. It's just one of those things that could happen in any country. And if you would like to have specific story lessons like this every month, this is just one of the pieces of the Fearless Fluency Club. Every month I offer the story, video lessons, MP3s, transcripts. All of this you can download and listen to yourself. Usually I try to have my husband, Dan, also reading with me so you can hear different voices and different styles of speaking, a man's voice, a woman's voice. So if that's useful for you and you'd like to sit on the train and listen and repeat, or maybe in your office or at home while you're washing the dishes, repeating the story, great. I hope that this will be useful for you. You can repeat this YouTube lesson, or you can learn like this every month. This month in May, we're talking about education and college and universities in the Fearless Fluency Club. So if you join in May, you'll get a new story. Not this story. This is a past story from January. But you'll get a chance to get another story about college and education and different questions, different vocabulary words. And in June, there'll be another story. In July, another story to help you really integrate your knowledge and to remember it, because that's the purpose. Have a lot of repetition so that you can remember it. If you would like to do this, there is a link in the description below this video that will give you more information about the Fearless Fluency Club, and you can also enjoy this lesson for free on YouTube, which is why I shared it with you. Thanks so much, everyone, for learning with me. I hope it's interesting and useful and something that you can take as another piece of your puzzle as you're trying to learn English. Learning different concepts and different ways to learn is useful. So if this concept is useful for you, continue it. And I hope that I can continue to help you in this way too. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you again the next time. Bye.